So here we are. Hi, everyone. We're just getting set, just getting started. If you're catching us, we're, you know, we we get in the habit of this. This is why we do this. This is why we go live. We just get in the habit of this, and we say it's 11:45. We build in some time to have people discover us, and so I can clear my throat and all that, and also get the tech stuff worked out because the tech stuff is not a small thing, but so here we are. We are live from my closet. I mean, a Filipino in his closet. I mean, is that such an odd thing in 21st century America? No. Hello, everyone. My name is Emil Guillermo. Emil, I'm back to you. No, Emil Guillermo. I say my name the Filipino Filipino way, which is the double L's as L-Y, Guillermo, as opposed to the double L's as the YY, Guillermo, which is like, it always sounds like the wrong note to me. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're a double L Filipino and you know who you are, it's the Castilian, right? It's the Castilian in us, right? Because of imperialism, colonization. We got the Spanish when they were saying it that way, not when they were saying it the burrito way. The double L's as Y's, YY, right? So we said the L and the Y because we love all the letters equally. That's the way we are. And and because we love all the letters, and we have to, and because we love ourselves as Filipino, we have to insist that we are Guillermo. We're the double L's, right? I mean, and a lot of people still say Guillermo, even people who are Filipino, even my family, they say, oh, we're Guillermos. Oh, wait, are you Guillermos because other people say you're a Guillermo and not because you know you're a Guillermo? Oh, uh, I guess we're a Guillermo. And I'll tell you a story about my cousin Stefan a bit later. But anyway, here we are. We're here. It's the weekend of Thanksgiving, which is typically, if you went out on Black Friday, hopefully you didn't. Hopefully you just shopped online or something. I know some people did, but a lot of people, you go out on Black. I did it once. I did Black Friday once. My mother-in-law was here. I got my kids. We went crazy. This was about the time when they were just starting selling big screen TVs, and we were going to get one. We were going to get one on sale, and we were going to strategically mapped it out. We're going to park here. We're going to park here by the exit so that we can get the TV and get out. And we're going to get a cart. We're going to go inside. We're going to break the line. Not break. We're not going to do anything illegal, but we're just going to strategically get the best TV. And I was talking about it over Thanksgiving dinner with my daughter. We weren't in the same room. We were Zooming. And she said, Dad, you were just crazy then. And I have to admit, I guess I was. I guess I was. But I remember that was the only time I ever really did Black Friday. I went out. It was like 5 a.m. in the morning. Heaven forbid. Well, I mean, I just don't. I mean, really, I look back and say, I guess it was an experience. I did it once, never again. And we got our TV. We don't even use that TV anymore. But we got the TV. And I know that Saturday is a day you have buyer's remorse. You say, oh, maybe I should return that TV. No. Keep return. I think we ultimately returned. We got greedy. See, Black Friday is about greed, not about need or it's greed. And I think we bought two TVs. Like we needed two TVs. Oh, I better return one on Remorseful Saturday, which is what today would be, Remorseful Saturday. So I just hope that you're more sane about all these things and don't have a remorseful Saturday, but have a good Saturday. This is the virtual Filipino American National Historical Society Museum. We open the doors virtually. We're closed again. If you wanted to go to the museum, oh, it's Thanksgiving. The kids are back from school, from college. Let's go to the museum. I'm sorry. There's a COVID crisis around. We have not gone in denial. We're not in denial of the fact that there are now close to 13 million cases in America, that there are 265,000 deaths in the country, that San Joaquin County, where Stockton is, went from purple, which is the highest, down to red. Like a month ago, we were thinking, oh, we're going to open up. Do we really want to open up? Do we really want to open up? We prepared for it. I got a little sick, so maybe that was my excuse. I got a COVID-related allergy. I didn't go to the prep, and we were all set to open up, and then suddenly San Joaquin County's back to the red, or back from red to purple, and it's been like that. I don't know if it's going to change back, but we are essentially closed at the museum, which means we can't share some of the gallery stuff that you can see on our FONS Facebook page. That's Facebook at FANHS Museum, at FONS Museum. Also, you can go to our webpage at fonsmuseum.com and just, see the things we have. Of course, it's not quite like being with us, with Terry and with, Chris Castro, who's usually there at the door, and, our volunteers. But we just thought that it would be wiser if we just stayed closed so that no one got sick. We're not in denial. We want everyone to be well. And I like to say that the museum is where you are. The museum is, you take your Filipino-ness with you, and we share our stories, and we can do it virtually. We can do it online. You can email me if you want. I can interview you. We usually have special guests, but send me an email at emilamok@gmail.com, emilamok@gmail.com. You can also use filipinomuseum@gmail.com. It all gets to me. We'll talk, because we all have stories to add to the Filipino timeline. And I'll share with you the Filipino timeline a bit later. Oh, let's do it now. Shoot. Filipino timeline, it's about Filipino history. And you got to go back to the first ones, right? The first Filipinos, 1587, the first Filipinos. Then 1898, that's when the U.S. colonized the Philippines. Then 1906, the Sacadas go from the Philippines to Hawaii, which wasn't a state, but was a territory, right? They worked the plantations. Then 1920, 40,000, or actually 1930. It's actually started in the 20s and teens in the 20s, but by 1930, 40,000 Filipinos were in the United States. And of course, they didn't need green cards. They were all American nationals by virtue of colonization. So they just came in, 40,000 of them. In male to female ratios of 14-1, that's kind of critical. So there was a kind of what I call a Jim Cropino in California, where signs were up that said no Filipinos allowed. Filipinos were seen as really the other. There were riots, there were Filipinos killed. Fermin Tobera, Watsonville, 1930. There was a real anti-Filipino movement. And by 1934, the Philippines was again made the Filipinos were no longer American nationals. They made us aliens, Filipino aliens, which made us instantly deportable. And it was one of the first instances of self-deportation. And if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area and you look at Angel Island in the Bay, that's where Filipinos were sent after they arrived and they repatriated. They were first sent to Angel Island, and then that was their checkout point, sent back to the Philippines. But most people didn't want to go back. right? They wanted to stay in America, so they just slunk down, tried to stay invisible. Maybe no one will see us. There's only like 40,000 of us. By 1941, there was World War II, and that's when Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, hey, Filipinos, you're here in America, you can join the army. And they had the first and the second, right? And they fought. But the Filipinos in the Philippines, there was the promise of citizenship, an important aspect of Filipino American history. And Filipinos answered the call in the USAFFE, United States Armed Forces, and I forget the acronym, USA, the USAFE. Anyway, the Filipinos joined, but by 1946, Truman rescinded the, went back on the promise, and that another key moment in Filipino American history. The next key moment came in 1965, the Immigration Act. More Filipinos were allowed in after these ridiculously racist and harsh quotas were placed on Filipino immigration, less than 50 a year. 1965, it was all lifted. The floodgates opened. 1965, also the Larry Itliong led, a Filipino American, not Cesar Chavez, Larry Itliong led the Delano grape strike. That was 1965. And really between 1970 and today is the building of a great Filipino American middle class. More people came in, doctors and lawyers and, medical folks from the Philippines, and also the ones born here coming up in the American system. And that really is the rise of the American middle class, as we know it. And it's funny look how long it's taken. And look at what's happened in the interim. The middle class, what is the middle class now? The middle class used to be, when my father was making his way up the middle class, once he was able to start a family, you can make $400 a month, you're middle class. What, $5,000 a year? Oh yeah. We didn't know how close to poverty that was. Now, middle class in America, 2020. Well, let's see, if you're a firefighter and a teacher, maybe making a household income of $120,000. Oh, with overtime, maybe 200. Now you're middle class. You're not rich, you're middle class in America in 2020. Anyway, that's kind of the struggle we're in now. Filipinos in society, developing, moving up the ladder, hitting the glass ceiling, coming back down. And this is the history we talk about. Your story, our story, fits into that timeline. And if you understand that timeline, you understand where you belong in that history. Oh, let me add some other key moments. 2009, the veteranos, the World War II vets from the Philippines who were denied by the Rescission Act, they were made somewhat whole, more like a settlement, but that problem or that fight still isn't over. And I really think that's really the, I don't want to say it's the only thing, but if you're looking at this timeline going back to 1587 to now, that was a significant thing. 2009, Obama got that passed. The veteranos got their lump sum, 15,000 here, 9,000 in the Philippines. Some are still fighting that. And the rest, as I said, between the 50s and now, which is like 70 years, has really been more immigration, more development of Filipinos rising up in different fields, New Filipinos. When I was the first Filipino American to anchor a network news show at NPR, there had never been another Filipino American. When I was the host of All Things Considered, 1989. And to this day, well, there's like one or two. There was a gal at CBS, did the weekends for a while on television. But the breakthroughs are really few and far between, but historic in terms of what they mean for our people, our group, and our ability to have that Jackie Robinson moment, to be the first, to break through, to be one, and maybe one of many, or maybe to bust through that door and say, come on, there are a lot more of us. It's not just one person, one gal, one guy. We represent the potential to be so much more, to be an historical force. I mean, that's what the Filipino Americans can be. Anyway, we do at the museum, we tell these stories with the hope of inspiring people to keep going, to know that this is the timeline that goes back from 1587 to now, and how it's a long journey. And every step of the way we mark with a story of our success or failure, but a story where we learn something about our nature, about our struggle, about our resilience, right? Now, this week in Filipino American history, we just had Thanksgiving. Do you have a good Thanksgiving? We'll talk about Thanksgiving in a sec. I want to read from the calendar, the FONS calendar. This is Filipino American on the 26th of November. Filipino American National Historical Society, established in Seattle in 1982. Can you imagine? 1982 in Seattle. Fred and Dorothy Cordova's book, Filipinos, Forgotten Asian Americans. You know that book. You can buy it at the museum if we were open. Send me an email if you want it. We'll get you a copy. We'll tell you how much and all that. Dorothy and Fred's Filipinos, Forgotten Asian Americans, published in 1983. FONS promotes October as Filipino American History Month, which commemorates the arrival of the Luzon Indios in California in October 1587. But November 26, November 26, a key date. It's when FONS was started. Now, FONS is its own 501c3 in Seattle. The FONS Museum, we're our own 501c3 in Stockton, California. It's in Stockton because Stockton is where Fred Cordova was born. Stockton is where all the Filipinos were in the 20s and 30s. It was the hub of Filipino America, right here in Stockton. I mean, imagine that. In Stockton, they would come here. I mean, my father came in 1928, but he got off the boat in San Francisco. He did not want to go to Stockton. I don't know. Maybe someone told him about Stockton on the boat. He was on a boat with a lot of people from Luwag and Pangasinan and Cebu. I mean, he was the dollar steamship. But he did not take the yellow cab into Stockton. He did not have a thing ready in Stockton. He and his brother stayed put in San Francisco. They made their way through the ranks of the kitchen help, the cooks, the chefs in San Francisco. As I am fond of saying, my father said, I am here not to pick the vegetables, but to cook the vegetables. That's the way he sounded. Not making fun of you. My father, Ilocano, my mother, Tagalog. They could not speak to each other in their respective dialects, so they had to speak the bad English. That's why I know it so well. I hear it. I grew up with that. That was my Taglish, although it was more Engelog. Ingalag or Engakano. So this is a special day, or this week in Filipino American history. We salute Fred and Dorothy Cordova. I saw Dorothy on Zoom when we did the Celine webinar, but darn it, hey, 1982. That's when FONS are on November 26th. FONS, the big organization that really was the umbrella for the museum, but the museum is now off on its own. But we're still connected. You know, we still feel where that umbilical cord came from. We still have it. We haven't mistaken it for longanisa and eaten it in the fried rice. We haven't done that. We still know we are connected. So to Dorothy and to Fred, Uncle Fred, everyone, here's the thing. If you're Filipino, everyone's an uncle, a tita or tita, tito or tita, right? Uncle or aunt. I mean, my family was sort of in that tradition, but I was too smart for my own good. I kept saying, he's not my uncle. That was me as a 7-year-old. Hey, Dad, he's not my uncle. Sonny boy, you shut up, please. Okay. But I mean, really. But now, but you either adopted it or you didn't. But thank goodness everyone did. I don't. I think I'm one of the few who catches himself not say Auntie Dorothy, and then ultimately I say Auntie Dorothy out of respect. I love Dorothy Cordova. Boy, and she has some stories. She has some stories to tell. So anyway, November 26th. And then on the 27th, get this, on the 27th, 2,700 members of the Filipino Agricultural Laborers Association in Stockton demand a wage increase and call a crippling strike during the peak of the celery season in 1939. So you see how the ag around Stockton and the union movement starting, well, it didn't start with Larry Itliong and the grapes in Delano in 1965, but by then it became a national movement. But it had been building up all throughout the years, from the first Filipinos in the 20s to the 30s, finally with the grapes, because the Filipinos went up and down the Central Valley. Finally, with the grapes, they said, this is where we take our stand against the growers. And that was Larry Itliong in 1965, not Cesar Chavez, Larry Itliong. And another important date, November 27th, 1939, a celery strike. Celery. So you had some celery in your Thanksgiving meal? I'm sure you did. I mean, celery is one of those things where you don't know it's there. Oh, they cut them up. It's almost indistinguishable. You don't usually get the stalk unless you're being served crudités at the beginning of the meal. But look, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving meal. If you did, well, wasn't it good? You didn't have to be with everyone in the same place. You could mask up, or maybe you mask and you distance. You did it outside and had the windows open and the fans blaring. What I found is it was just my wife and I we had our Thanksgiving meal, and then we Zoomed everybody. It was a Zoom giving, a thanks Zooming. We Zoomed people and say, hey, hi. The family got together through Zoom. We had the same fights that we always have. We had the same good things. We had the same. It was like we saved each other the drive. Or not each other, but all of us. We saved all of us the drive. And people were all over, East Coast, South, Midwest. We just connected. I mean, not long, But a couple hours, you play. Did you play a game? I know it doesn't sound like a great game. You can't always play crimes against humanity or cards against humanity all the time because people start getting the okay. Always go for the yeah, the dirtiest jokes and to get the laugh. But no, we played a very simple kind of trivia game that everyone can play. You need a phone and you need your computer so you can text each other the things you need, about the game. But and this is not an endorsement. I mean, no money coming to me. The game was categories. It's just a nice trivial game that enables you to kind of compete without getting into fights. Like if you played poker or something like that. All right. So just my suggestion. We didn't eat. We eat. We have our own meal. We show our meal. Hey, look, Heather, look at the fake turkey. Oh, look, oh, that's vegan. No oil. No oil. How is that? Talaga. Oh. So vegan, no oil. Um, so it was a good Thanksgiving, except I didn't see all the people I wanted to see. We didn't connect, every one of us, but it was still good to be distanced and to not be in denial of this thing that has caused the museum to shut down. There's a virus out there. People are getting sick. People are dying. I mean, we're up to 265,000 deaths in the United States. And more than that, I mean, if you were eating a Thanksgiving meal, hallelujah, there were so many people who were going without or who had to seek a food line and seek assistance. And ordinarily people would go and help people and in a food line. Did you do that? Did you? Or in Stockton, they had long lines here for food handouts. So if you had a meal, no, oh, maybe pun intended. If you had a meal, you had plenty to be thankful for. You really did. You honestly did. And it's just one of those times you count your blessings on Thanksgiving Day, right? You have so many people to thank. And we thank people the other day. Check the other video. We thank people for giving to our fundraiser. We have these fundraisers on Facebook. Chris Castro's up. He's got his fundraiser. Click on his photo of his family and donate. Donate you know, this week, this month, the rest of this month. My fundraiser was part of October or all of October and part of November. And I thank those people, especially my old chum from high school and junior high, Brian McFadden. Brian had a $200 match, and it sparked us. It helped us get to at least a decent goal, because even though we're closed at the museum, the landlord isn't closed. I mean, we have some grant assistance to help us for rent, but not. I mean, when you consider that this pandemic has lasted from March, we've been closed from March to now, the end of November. That's about 8 months, and our rent's about what, $1,500 a month. I mean, that's a lot of money that we try to make up each month. And when we're closed, not only do we have to pay rent, but we're shut off from people like you from coming in and it's free. We don't charge admission. So we don't get the kind donation that people make after they come to visit the museum. And then here's the thing. We are all volunteers. It's an all volunteer organization. And when people realize that, and they say, No one's getting rich off Filipino American history. What? Are you guys crazy? No, no, no. We live Filipino American history, and then we talk about it. That's what gives us joy to share these stories with you. No one's getting rich off this. So go to Facebook, go to the Fonz, Facebook at Fonz Museum, FANHS Museum, and check out the fundraiser. Chris Castro's got one right now. We have one every month. I know there's going to be a lot of special things going on. Giving Tuesday's coming up. We have a lot of people want to give during Christmas. We're going to take it one at a time. We know that we're trying to be mindful of our audience, and we're trying not to like keep going to the well. We have some goals and some dreams about where we want to bring the museum and what we want to do. And it's a shame that COVID has been kind of an obstacle. But with your donations, we continue to be virtual. We continue to tell the story of Filipino American history. We continue to stay vital and figure out ways in which to get that story to you wherever you are, not just in Stockton, not just in California. If you're in New York with Joy Tobacco's gang, if you're in Texas, if you're in Chicago, if you're in Seattle, if you're in Hampton Roads there with Alan, or if you're down in Florida, Hawaii, wherever you are, the museum is here for you. The museum is of the heart and of the mind, and we tell these stories. We share them with you. So Thanksgiving, one thing about Thanksgiving, they're like meetings. This is a Facebook live stream, and I guess we could have a meeting, and we could have people in the meeting talking. So if you want to ever be a part of that, send me an email at emilamok@gmail.com, emilamok@gmail.com, and say, hey, I'll sit in on your Zoom cast, because we do go on Zoom, then we push it out to Facebook Live, and then you can watch it, and that way we don't have to smell each other's tinapa and the garlic, and it's like your garlic is yours and my garlic is mine. Of course, I've got the fake tinapa because I don't eat. I'm vegan. But no, that's not why we do it. That's not why we do it. But anyway, the point is, we do these things, and I noticed that in meeting, if you're in meeting mode on Zoom, it's really hard to have a greeting with more than, say, 10, 20 people, like if you have a big family thing, because we had a family Zoom. We had one family Zoom, and there must have been like, I don't know, individual screens, but each screen had about 7 people. So there must have been about 15 to 20 ultimately. It was kind of unwieldy. And what happens is you really need a ringmaster MC who will distribute the ball, sort of like a point guard, sort of like, I guess Stephen Curry is a point guard. He's kind of like a shooting guard, but no, the shooting guard was, Klay Thompson was more, all right, look, and he's gone anyway. Klay Thompson is hurt. But you need a point guard who's going to say, hey, what about you, Ante? Do you like that? And I will offer my services as a holiday meal MC for a small donation to the museum. I just figured, hey, this is something that's needed, maybe up, leading up to Christmas or leading up to your holiday dinner. You want to have a gathering. If you need someone to come and MC your holiday gathering for a small donation to the museum, I'll come do it. Spend a little time, make sure everyone talks, everyone's fed. Run your breakout room, so in case the Salvaje needs to talk to the other Salvaje, they can go into breakout room 1 and talk to each other. I can do that for you. Just another service, I'm willing to provide as a museum director. So that was Thanksgiving. And now I mentioned my cousin Stefan. If you ever go to my Facebook, my individual Facebook page, you'll see a banner saying "Justice for Stefan." You say, "Oh, Emil, what's that? Justice for Stefan?" Well, if you don't know his story or my story, my cousin Stefan came from the Philippines as a young boy. He must have been about seven or eight, and they all came. They were all waiting in line, right? They when they applied for the visa, it took them 20 years. And while they were in line, mom and dad had all these kids. Stefan was born. By the time they were able to arrive in the late 90s, there they were. And they're all just these little kids. And there was like several sets of cousins and brothers, because this is the older brother and sister category in immigration, which is one of the things that is being threatened by, in some immigration or anti-immigration circles. Get rid of that brother and sister thing. We don't want family unity. But it's been the reason why a lot of Filipino American families were together. So I met Stefan when we had this welcome dinner in San Francisco. Come to San Francisco. Isn't this better than the Philippines? And yes, and we had all the Filipino food. I think my cousin, my manong, prepared a lechon. We had it was like a big fiesta. They just got off the plane. They were sleepy. They're kids. First time I met Stefan, I said, Stefan, I just want to do this Filipino test. I say my name the way they say it in the Philippines. He says, oh, Guillermo, uncle. There, see? I told my other non-Guillermo cousins from America, say how they say it in the Philippines. They were looking at me. But Stefan was a good kid. He was just 8 when I first met him. And in 2014, he goes to high school or junior high school, goes to San Francisco State. We kind of lose touch as he becomes older and American. And in 2014, he's shot dead. And that would have been the first weekend of May, 2014. I talk about his death a lot in my writings. I'll talk about it at some point. It was kind of a silly thing. Not silly if your cousin's dead. It's not silly. But he went out for a night of celebrating. He was about to graduate from San Francisco State. And he went to his apartment. They lived there in the Mint Mall, the apartments above the Mint Mall in San Francisco. He got off on the wrong floor. Tried to open the door that he thought was his, but it wasn't. And from what we know, he entered and he was shot. We don't know if the door was open or if he was let in. We just know that the man inside who shot him knew the law, knew that if someone came in, I mean, this guy was a 65-year-old man. If you're a 65-year-old man and you're working security, you know the law. And if you think that someone is trying to get into your door and you live in the south of Market and you're fearful, you're taking aim. Self-defense. At least that's how it's portrayed. We don't know what the truth is. And because it was in this gray area with the homicide laws and this idea of the castle doctrine, where if someone comes into your home, you have a right to shoot them. Did you know that? It's called the Castle Doctrine. The DA wouldn't prosecute. DA wouldn't touch the case. We have the killer. We know who the killer is. But we couldn't get anyone to prosecute. So yesterday would have been Stefan's 33rd birthday. And we remembered him in the place where we remember all these things these days, online. And if, like I said, if you go to my Facebook, my personal Facebook page, Emil Guillermo, you'll see Justice for Stefan, the cousin 6 years ago holding a banner saying Justice for Stefan. We're outside the Hall of Justice in San Francisco. Did we get justice? No. Did the veterans get justice after the World War II, after the 1946 Rescission Act? Not exactly, no. Did Filipinos get justice? Did Firmin Tobera get justice after he was shot in 1930? No. Why should Stefan Guillermo? We just get to tell the story. We're one of the markers in the timeline, our personal histories that are indicative of a kind of treatment throughout. That's Filipino American history. So Stefan has, another year has passed. Most of the cousins and family members have moved on. There was just a real dead end. It's not a matter of who done it. We know who done it, but we couldn't get the law to work for us, which means, and someone told me this, you know, it's really hard to prove murder. You know, you got to go beyond a reasonable doubt, you know, BARD, beyond a reasonable doubt. You can't convict someone on circumstantial evidence. And then there's that Castle Doctrine. Man, no one's going to touch that case. No one did. There was no other evidence. The only one there was the killer. And he will meet his maker at some point. But everyone has gone on. But we remember every year. It's like a cycle, right? Just like going over these calendar of events. Each and every year, you recall, you remember. It's the value of history. Maybe we learn. Maybe that's the lesson. That's the value. We learn. So that's my cousin Stefan's story. I want to leave you with one last thing. You know, we talk about people dying from this COVID crisis. We're up to 260. I can't believe 265,000. Just the other day, it seems like we were at 210, 200. When Trump got sick, we were at about 210. Now it's 265. People are still dying. And this morning, Trump is playing golf. I guess, hey, look, he's done all he can, he says. What else can he do? I mean, provide comfort? You're going to take it from him? Let him play golf, I guess. But it's a little startling. Would you play golf if your family were dying? Would you go out and want to play golf? If your family were dying, right? I mean, you'd want to maybe sit with them, provide some comfort, do something, right? But I guess this is one of those things where I know it's his style. I mention this because we're still counting votes, you know. I mean, the election has been certified. Trump is still arguing that the election was rigged. It wasn't rigged. Election was stolen. It wasn't stolen. They're counting the votes, and the votes continue to be counted, even here in San Joaquin County, the home of the museum. And just for kicks, I checked to see, well, what is the latest tally in Stockton? Stockton, which is typically Republican, typically, I mean, there's a lot of blue collar, Latino, Black, Filipino, Asian, but and even though it went for Hillary Clinton very marginally in 2016, the whole Central Valley is seen as a kind of the red part of the blue state. But I checked the numbers, and boy, it was really no contest. It was, I want to say the number correctly, because it was really kind of shocking. Joe Biden got 56% of the vote. 56. Donald Trump got 42. That is not even close. That is a landslide. And of all places, Stockton. And the only thing that I can think of is that, and I'm not being partisan now, I'm just talking about an analysis of the election. The only thing I can think of is that, yes, the analysis that people are making nationwide, that the suburbs went against Trump, is kind of true here in Stockton, where even though it's ag, there's a lot of people who are suburban dwellers who come here from the Bay Area and have changed the nature of this agricultural Central Valley community, at least when it comes to the presidential election. 56 to 42 is a lot. 56 for Biden, 42 for Trump is a landslide. Compare that with the nation, which was more like 52 to 48. Biden to Trump, a lot closer. Here, right here in the Central Valley in San Joaquin County, boy, it shows that there was a real backlash against Trump, and that Trump was it was a referendum against him, because ironically in Stockton, its progressive mayor, Michael Tubbs, was defeated by another Black Republican candidate, or by a Republican Black candidate, by at least 10 to 11 points. I didn't drill down, but I just know that Michael Tubbs lost. And Michael Tubbs was the subject of an HBO special, a progressive. He was for the $1,000 a month, the Andrew Yang idea of giving people money. But it shows that it wasn't uniform, that just because the Republicans crossed over with the red with the blue to defeat Trump on the presidential end, doesn't mean locally there wasn't a move to go more conservative. Just an interesting thing that I notice as you look at the papers and you see people analyze the election. They say that the suburbs revolted against Trump. Well, what happened to the ag in Stockton? Well, Stockton ag is really mostly a lot of very suburban type people who've moved in from the Bay Area, housing refugees who've come here. They've changed the electorate somewhat. And it's actually not red, not blue, but it's much more purple than you would think. And I think the Filipinos are part of that electorate here in Stockton. I think they are reflected in that 56 to 42 Biden over Trump. Just an interesting observation. I say that because, the Filipinos were very, very involved in this election in terms of the enthusiasm. And over the weekend, one of the things about being Zoomy during the holiday is that you didn't have to necessarily see the weird uncle that you disagree with on everything. I mean, regardless, whatever side you're on, right? If you're a pro-Trump, well, then he was the pro-Biden guy you hate. Or if you're pro-Biden, he was the pro-Trump guy you hate. But because once again, at Facebook, we have the ability to like go into these Phil-Am voter room or Phil-Am voter groups and just I don't want to say discuss. It's more like you post something and someone else posts something. This is really dangerous, I think, because, my one of my friends, a Filipino American, older guy, big Filipino community guy, the Bay Area, very, very Republican, very, very disappointed in what happened, and still in denial about the election. Saying, hey, the election was stolen. There was theft. There was fraud. Look, you take all the votes that you think were fraudulent and count them for your guy, and you still lost. Let's get beyond this and understand that we are on the same team. We're on the same side. And of course, some people are just, they've adopted the same kind of attitude that Trump has, and they just will not let up when clearly the facts show that you should let up. And they'll say, look at this story. Look, and they'll look at the story and it's a conspiracy theory, or there are no facts, backing up a claim that there was fraud. If there were facts, the courts would have taken up any or all of the lawsuits that the Trump folks, if the Trump campaign has launched, and they haven't. So let's see it all play out in court. If it does play out in court, then yeah, let's see fairness occur. I don't think anyone is against that. No one is against Donald Trump. Everyone wants what's right for the country. And what's right for the country is that we all get on the same page and say, okay, it's over. Let's move on and celebrate America. And not, oh my God, this thing was stolen. Democracy's terrible. We can't deal with democracy. That's what's happening. 70 million people voted for Trump, 72 million. And out of those, maybe even if half hold on to this idea that the election was a fraud, that the election was stolen, that's bad for America. That's bad for democracy. And then, hey, guess what? American democracy is no longer a model for that thing over there, that country over there in Asia known as the Philippines, that was built, on the model, the U.S. was the model for Philippine democracy. I think it's just better to say not there was fraud, but let's see the courts deal with these things. And if nothing comes up in court, let's accept the vote, move on. Thank goodness the GSA administrator is allowed for the transition, because we got some work to do. We got some work to do as a country. And we have people dying. Got some work to do. This pandemic has really been harsh to Filipino Americans, many of whom are on the front lines. And something has to be done to help protect them. Something has to be done to make sure that this period is over as quickly as possible. We move into the vaccination period and we get back to normal. No one wants to see this prolonged. And I know, I speak for many Filipino Americans out there. I mean, you're living it. Email me. Let me know. Put it in chat. Tell me what you're thinking. I mean, we would love to be open. We cannot be open this weekend because of COVID. We'd love to be open, but we're virtual. We're virtual because of the virus. And let's hope that, let's root for the vaccines. Let's root for a fair and a trouble-free distribution to everyone. so that we can get our economy back and get back to normal. But I hope you're like taking notes about what's been happening in your lives, because this is history. Your grandchildren or your children will want to know, Mom, Dad, how did we survive that? How did we survive that COVID crisis? Well, we stuck together as family. We did it the way Filipino Americans always have. We sought community. And then we told each other stories. And from our stories, we gained strength. So think about that. This is Thanksgiving weekend. We're being thankful. We thank everyone who has contributed to our Facebook fundraisers. Please be mindful on Tuesday. I think it's Giving Tuesday. Please press a button, a donate button, and help us out. We're all volunteer here. And we're doing this because we have stories to tell. So have a great rest of your Thanksgiving Saturday. I hope this isn't buyer's remorse Saturday for many of you, if you did the Black Friday thing. Tomorrow we'll be back. We'll talk about other things. We'll talk about other things. And we'll try to place your story in a timeline, my Emil Amok timeline of Filipino American history. We all have a place. We all have a place for our story. It was like just to drop in, put a little pin on the timeline of where we are. And that's part of Filipino American history. You don't have to be a scholar. You could read a book or two. Don Baldwin's Little Manila's in the Heart. That's a good book. And we sell it in our bookstore. But that's a good book. If that's the only book you read, well, at least you'll have the California story. You may not have the Joy Tobacco story in New York. You may not have the story of the, well, you might have the Alan Bergano story, the Hampton Roads story. You'd have that. Because Alan Alascaro, I mean, went up and down. Good story. Another fond, stalwart member. So I thank you for being here at the museum. Our virtual thing we do, our pop-ups. We do them Saturday, Sunday. We start at 11:45, just kind of warm up, build up, and talk a little bit, share stories. So until next time, and there will be a next time. As my friend, my late friend, Don Mabalan was fond of saying, mahals and salamats.